Hello and welcome back to the show. So I'm super excited today to be sitting down with my guest, John. Now, John has a really unique background in business because John is one of the top network marketing professionals in the world. John has actually been the top earner in four different network marketing companies in the past 42 years in his career and actually holds the distinction of winning several awards, including the first award ever given in a specific company that he's worked with in his network marketing career. John is also an author and has written two Amazon best-selling books that is currently now available that you guys can see. And he's also the host of the Leave Nothing to Chance podcast, where he interviews some of the top, most influential people in their space and also helping a lot of network marketers. So the reason why John is going to be a really interesting guest for our show today, because a lot of real estate agents today are learning about revenue share models when it comes to choosing or hanging their license with a brokerage that they can then build a legacy income with, which is very similar to the network marketing model that a lot of people traditionally know. So John's going to be able to share with us a little bit today on how you can build a successful network marketing style business as a real estate agent and the skill sets that you need to be able to master this, and also how to plan your finances so that way you can create that wealth, but also keep it in your life and in your legacy as well. So, John, welcome to the show, man. Super excited to have you join us here today.
Well, hey, I'm so excited about talking to you at every level because, first of all, I love what your company's doing. As I said earlier, I've been watching them for a few years, so love what they're doing. You guys are bridging two separate industries of network marketing and real estate, two huge opportunities, but you guys are putting them together. So great on that. And to your non-listen or your listeners that aren't in your company, if you're in network marketing like I am, I'm not part of your company. The same information is going to help you as well, whether you're selling supplements, services, whatever it happens to be that you're selling, because the things I'm going to share are basic and fundamental to any direct selling business, which the real estate business certainly is, and network marketing 100% is.
Yeah, absolutely, man. So, John, why don't you start off by sharing a little bit about yourself and just how did you get started in the industry and network marketing and kind of your journey of building up a successful career being with four different companies and now being a really a leading voice in this space?
1983. I'll try to tell this fast because it takes a long time, but three significant things happened to me in 1983. April 18th, a guy who I had wrestled with in high school, who was a couple years older than me. He had gone to Lehigh University in Pennsylvania. I went to Seton Hall University in New Jersey. I was working part-time selling health club memberships, and I was working out at a gym in New Jersey. And this fellow's name was Tom Houston. He came into the gym that day and he starts to tell me about a business that he had started and that I could be part of that business for $32 and have my own business. Now, good news, bad news, $32 wasn't a lot of money, but it was a lot of money to me in 1983. I wasn't making a lot of money. But I said, Tom, if you'll hold my check for a few days, I can cover it probably at the end of the week, and I'd like to join your business. So I did. I got this box of supplements and a career book with that particular company. I went home that night. I had my schoolwork. I finished that about 10 o'clock. I got out a yellow pad and I started to read that career book, and I went right to the marketing plan. I went right to the money. I was like, I'll figure out the product and all this other stuff later. Let me look. Let me see if there's any money in this. I went in there. I started drawing circles. And by about 2 o'clock that morning, I was a millionaire on paper. I was like, well, I am going to do this. Everybody I know is going to say yes. Well, I was a little naive, but nonetheless, I was excited. And I started my business. And that very first 30 days, I made about $800 retailing and wholesaling that particular company's products, which was very, very good, by the way. When if $32 is a problem and you make 800, you solve the problem. So May 18th, 1983, I'm graduating college. Ronald Reagan is president. He is our commencement speaker. And he comes to the graduation. Now, at that time in my life, I'm still pretty socialistic. I'm under the naivety that big government is a good thing. So I said to my father that, hey, I don't even want to go to the commencement because I don't like Reagan. And my father didn't like Reagan. My father was a union guy, didn't like him, et cetera, et cetera. My father made a great point. He said, even though we don't like the guy, we respect the office. And you worked really hard for this degree, so you need to go. So I'm like, all right, fair enough. I said, but I'm not going to listen. I'm going to sit there. I'm going to sit there like this. I got all the answers and no money. And President Reagan had this ability that he could be speaking to 4,000 people, which was about what was at that event. And you felt like he was talking like you and I are looking at each other. And he talked about a couple of really important things. First one, the fact that capitalism frees people. And he referenced the then East German people who wanted what the West German people had in terms of goods, services, opportunity, right? Like you and I take for granted here in America, people in certain parts of the world, they don't have opportunities to join a great network marketing company, right? They're told what they're going to do and they're going to do it for 40 or 50 years. And, if they misbehave, they might disappear. So we talked about that. But the second thing he talked about really got me. And that was, he said that in 1932, when he had graduated college himself, there were no jobs, height of the Depression. He went back to a swimming hole that he had been a lifeguard at the previous summer. And there was a man there who was very successful in business. And at that time, they used to call Reagan Dutch for some reason. He really wasn't Dutch, he was Irish, but they called him Dutch. And he said, Dutch, what you need to do is you need to find a mentor, someone who can teach you a business that you're interested in and passionate about. And over the next couple of years, Reagan liked to speak, obviously, and he became a broadcaster for minor league baseball for the Chicago Cubs. Somebody heard him from Westinghouse Corporation, and they moved him to California to do commercials. And as they say, the rest is history. He got involved with politics and all of that, and the rest is history, as they say. But I felt like the president was talking to me because I'm saying, hey, I'm still out there looking for a traditional job because that's what my parents thought I should get. They thought this selling vitamins that I was doing, that was fun, but that's a part-time thing. You need to get a job. You got a degree. And a lot of pressure, by the way. I was the first person in my family to ever graduate college. So a lot of pressure. And I hesitated for a minute and I said, I think I've already found people who are mentoring me. I'm going to meetings. I'm learning things from different people. The guy who introduced me, the guy who introduced him, who also it was, a guy I knew from New Jersey. What happened then was really compelling because in June of that year, June of 1983, I went to my first ever real meeting of any kind. Hartford, Connecticut, about 1,000 people in a big auditorium. And the fellow doing the meeting comes out and he says the following words: for things to change, you have to change. And for things to get better, you have to get better. And I was like, well, it kind of clarified what I had been learning over those last 60 days, even though I had a tremendous college education and a tremendous school that I still support. But nobody ever taught me how to make money. And I thought somehow that me making a living was dependent on the government or my parents or my next door neighbor or my sisters. I didn't realize that I had the most significant role in that, right? All of those things are factors. But at the end of the day, I had to develop my brand. I had to develop John. I had to work on my self-development, my speaking skills, my writing skills, my showing up on meetings on time skills. All those type of skill sets I had to work on and develop. And I began to do so real serious. And by the way, I've always been an athlete. So I understood the focus and discipline of an athlete also. And it was like, I need to do that in business. I need to be just as focused as I was when I was wrestling or playing judo. I need to be just, probably more so, because this is a whole lot more important. This is my financial future. And I did. And long story short, that first company had some problems with the FDA in 1985. I left that company. I went into the life insurance business with great company, Metropolitan Life in New York. And I learned another valuable lesson. They had a senior level manager. I think he was vice president of the company, a guy by the name of Bob Crimmins. And I'm sure Mr. Crimmins is probably deceased by now. He's an older man then. But he told a great story about when he would get phone calls from different managers and agents. And he said, I multitask. He says, I could be reading a report and on the phone at the same time. This is before cell phones, by the way. You had to actually hold the phone. And he said, but when Mehdi Fakazadi, that's a real name, Persian name, Mehdi Fakazadi, who was the #1 representative of the Metropolitan Life Insurance Company in the 1980s, when he calls, I put down everything and I listen because I understand when Mady stops selling, I don't have a job. Well, that was called my first grade sales management lesson. So I'm learning multi-level, but now I'm learning sales management in a different environment. Okay. But once again, a direct selling environment, insurance, real estate, it's all direct selling at the end of the day. We're dealing with people that are hopefully going to buy something at the end of the conversation. That was a great lesson for me too. And then I got back in network marketing, and one thing led to another. I wound up becoming a top distributor at a company up in Canada in the water treatment business. Then they went out of business. I went, of all things, into a diet cookie company. I became the top distributor in that company, and so on and so forth. And then I wound up on the corporate side of network marketing, helped to build a company here in Dallas to a very large number in the sports nutrition field. And then 1996, my mother got sick, and I found a product that was developed at McGill University in Montreal for the immune system, and I've been doing that ever since. Became really my life's work, if you will, in terms of network marketing. But I would have sold that product if it wasn't network marketing, because I believed in the product so strongly. But I had to develop the skill sets again to take that product to market. And in my books, moving up, I have a lot of the strategies and tactics that I use to build that business to a couple $100 million a year. Leaving Nothing to Chance, my other best-selling book. That book is more on the personal side of not only me, but about 15 or 20 people I interviewed, and their personal stories of success and what they overcame to become successful. And both of those are available on Amazon. And I'm not here necessarily to sell you books, but let me go back to something. What I learned early on in 1983 was a strategy to take 10 pennies, believe it or not, stick them in my left pocket. Now, this will work at your company today. This works at my company today. This will work at any network marketing company. And it'll work if you're just a regular real estate person and you're not in your company. Okay. It's real simple. You put 10 pennies in your left pocket. Every time you talk to a prospect during the course of that day, whether it's over the internet like we are now, whether it's over the telephone, whether it's hopefully face to face, because still the best way I think to sell is face to face. Every time you do that, you take a penny out of your left pocket, you stick it in your right pocket. Well, if you do that 10 times a day with 10 people who don't currently own your product, you will develop the habit that you need to be successful, believe it or not. Okay, you'll overcome anything with that kind of work ethic. Now, if you talk to one a day, you don't have a great chance of success in anything. But if you get in the habit of talking to 10 people a day, and the pennies just help you to kind of go, okay, I talked to Bob, I talked to Mary, I talked to Bill, et cetera. If you do that, that skill set's going to get developed where it just becomes muscle memory. And you'll build a huge organization in your business. You'll build a huge business in whatever it is that you're selling, as long as the product's ethical, the company's ethical. You'll build a huge organization just on that one thing alone. Now, there's more to it than that, okay? But that's that one skill alone. I've talked to people on 5 continents that come back to me and say, just that one thing, John, that's all I did. And I've built a 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, $100,000 a month income or more by doing that repeatedly and by teaching my organization to do that. Because what's our business? Our business is numbers. Our business is strength in numbers, law of averages. The more people you talk to, the more people say yes. Pretty simple.
Yeah, so that's really interesting because you've been in sales in different capacities, right? So you were selling different products in your network marketing career, but you were also in a more, I guess, more or less traditional sales role with direct selling in the insurance space as well. So I think it's really interesting when you see a lot of real estate agents who are kind of making the switch or making the commitment, if you will, to build a team through a network marketing like model like we have here at our company at EXP, but also other companies with a similar revenue share model as well. I do find a lot of agents tend to struggle, and it could be various different reasons, but you've been in sales in multiple capacities. So I'd love for maybe you to compare a little bit about, traditional sales roles as far as just selling products or selling a service, right? Like in real estate as an agent or maybe in insurance, right? Which is very more or less comparable, but on the recruiting side, comparing that to the sales side, what are the differences and what do you see people who are, maybe successful in sales, but couldn't necessarily translate that to being successful in the attraction or recruiting side of the business?
Recruiting is a skill. It has to be learned. And you could be a tremendous realtor either on your own or with any of the great companies that are across the United States here, and step into the recruiting world and not know what you're doing, and you're not going to recruit people. Why? Because the number one thing that I have to learn sometimes and teach other people in that type of space, okay? Because I train insurance agents also, for that matter. Okay, that all of a sudden say, hey, I want to build an agency. Okay, like you're doing with EXP, you're building an agency, a real estate agency, really, network. Is learn how to recruit by the following couple of things. Number one, we used to listen to the radio. Now we listen to podcasts. Okay, but when we used to listen to the radio stations had call letters, and the call letters that the other person is listening to when you talk to them is called WIFM. And what that stands for is what's in it for me. Like if I get in front of a person and I'm with EXP and I say, I'm a realtor, I'm making X amount of dollars, I'm doing great, that's terrific. That's my story. But if that doesn't translate, okay, to that other person's mind, that they can see themselves doing it. So let's reposition that for a minute. Let's say you're successful with the company already. You got a lot of successful people, by the way, making some great money and some people making some real serious part-time money, right? Which is great too. Tell your story, number one, by learning to package it. So if I was in your company, I would say something like, hey, my name's John. I've been in real estate since, let's just pretend for a second. I've been in real estate since 1983 when I graduated college. A couple of years ago, it occurred to me that I could take my real estate skills, share them with other agents, and position them and myself to kind of co-share in the sales process beyond what I can personally sell. In other words, I could build my real estate agency not only here in Dallas, but throughout the United States. Okay. So I could have agents in California or New York or Chicago or wherever. And I could do that through this EXP system that's totally unique to this company. So you probably have contacts that you went to real estate school with, for example, that got licensed. Maybe some of them are struggling on the sales side. Maybe they're more on the management side, which means that maybe they'd be a better recruiter than maybe even I am. In other words, what are you doing? You're getting this stimulus to go in that other person's mind that, you know what? Yeah, I only sold 3 houses this month. But I know 5 or 6 other realtors and they sold 3 or 4. Maybe I could get them on my team with EXP. And I don't know who they know. They may, they certainly know people that are in the same business or want to be, because a lot of people are in real estate, part-time, they dabble in it, real estate investors, etc. And all of a sudden you got to get their mind going. It's this is what I equate it to. Think of tennis for a minute. If all I'm doing is I'm telling you how great and wonderful I'm doing, you say, well, that's good for John. But if I hit that tennis ball across the net to you and I say, hey, I think you could do this as well. I mean, you're already licensed, right? So the person says yes, or maybe they're in the process of getting licensed, okay? Have them see themselves doing what you're doing. And here's something I learned many years ago from my mentor, okay? Hey, we're going to lock arms on this. You're not by yourself there in Houston. I'm up here in Dallas. I'm going to come to Houston. I'm going to show you what I do. And I'm going to show 5 or 6 of your friends that are in real estate as well what I do. If it's for them, great. If not, no big deal. Okay. But we're going to build a team together of other people to take this EXP message across Houston initially in your group. And then from Houston, we're going to go to the rest of Texas. And then from the rest of Texas, we're going to go to the rest of the United States. And I think you guys are in Canada now too, if I'm not mistaken. But, in other words, get them to start to see a picture that they're not on their own, that this is a team endeavor, that you're there to guide the process and help the process, okay? So that they understand. And hey, we got all of these success stories already. You certainly could be one of them. but I don't expect you to be that overnight, and you're not on your own in that process. I'm here to help you in that process. My upline is here to help you in that process. The corporation is here to help you in that process. We want you to succeed. And then I always would follow up with something like this. Look, I'm not being altruistic here. At the end of the day, I want you to succeed, because if you succeed, frankly, I'm going to make some more money. The company's going to step in. They're going to pay me an override on what you do because I introduced you. So it's in my best interest to help you become successful. Now, I never say something like make you successful, because you can't make another person successful. They got to want to be successful. They got to go through the steps to be successful. But I want to let them know the training is there, the leadership is there, the corporation's there, the day, another thing called day by day, brick by brick, process by process training. In other words, we're not going to like sign you up today, say good luck, pat you on the back, tell them you're great, you're wonderful, go get them, kid, and forget about it. Oh, no. We're going to be on the phone. We're going to be doing Zooms. We're going to be doing two-on-one sponsoring meetings, for example. Like if I were doing EXP, I would be doing a lot on a local basis there in Houston, for example. I would be doing a lot of two-on-ones with other realtors. Let me take you for coffee and show you the EXP way of making money in real estate today, because this is the contemporary way people are going to make money in real estate, right? Let me show you a way. And when I say two-on-one, what I would do is I would team up, if you can, with your upline if they're local, okay? Or you're a leader, you team up with your downline and say, hey, let's go. Mary, you're in the business, but to get you started, let me take you out the first 3 times to present. I'll present the first one 100%. You just kind of sit there and make the introduction. So in other words, Mary says, this is my friend Bob. Tell him what we're doing. And you go 100%. And then you go and you see Bill. But with Bill, maybe you do 50%. You let her do 50%. The 50% that she already knows that she can do, that she's comfortable with. The third one, I always get a little hoarse on purpose. Like, oh man, throat's not feeling good. You're going to have to do this one, but I'm there to bail you out, but I don't want to be talking with my voice like this to your prospect. So when we go see, when Mary and I go and see Susie, you do the presentation. I'm there to bail you out. Now, I'm not going to interrupt her during the presentation. Even if she's stumbling and everything, let her stumble, because when she's on her own, she's going to stumble anyway. And by the way, it's okay. You don't have to be Ronald Reagan. You don't have to or Winston Churchill. You just have to know, some good basic information, so that once again, that other person says, I see myself doing this. And that's the WIFM. In other words, where that other human being says, I see myself joining you and doing this with you, arm in arm. Okay, we're going to work together to build this organization with EXP here in Houston or Atlanta or Chicago or wherever they happen to be located. I see myself doing this, that this is a team effort. And if they feel that, people hate to be alone. Part of this is community, okay? But at the end of the day, it's also like, okay, we're all in the same business. We used to be competitors. Now we can be allies. That's something you guys have really done. You've bridged that gap where all of a sudden people who used to be competing, now all of a sudden it's like, hey, the guy down the street that's with XYZ real estate, be on my team. Now we're not tripping over each other. Now we're saying, rah, rah, man, go sell that house, which is good. It's good for everybody. It's good for the economy. It's good for the company. It's good for all you as individuals as well. But those are types of things that I've always seen, is that if you could, in your mindset, see it as that mental tennis game where I've got to get into that other person's brain, that they see themselves doing what I'm doing, and that they like what I'm doing, that it sounds like it's fun. Couple key words: fun, simple, magical. If they go, this looks like fun, it seems like a nice organization to join, seems like nice people to work with, it's simple enough, they already understand real estate or they wouldn't be licensed, okay? So you don't have to teach them, what a house is or how to sell one. Obviously, you got to give them, your particular, skill sets within your company, how it works, how you get paid, etc. Okay, and magical. That hey, this could be amazing, and like I said, you guys have some major things happening with your company. I mean, you guys have come from nowhere and become one of the top direct selling companies in the world almost overnight. So you're doing something right, needless to say. But what you need to do is constantly be in front of your colleagues in the industry and let them know what you do. Because the other thing that's probably happened to some degree is some of the people in your industry, they think multi-level. Somebody tried to recruit them into something in the past to sell vitamins or whatever, and I don't want to do that. They're thinking it's that. So you got to get in front of them and say, no, no, this is still the profession of real estate, which is a profession, highly respected profession. We just have a pay system that makes a heck of a lot more sense than what you're going to get elsewhere. I think you just have to rebrand that so that they understand. So at least they'll have a conversation, and they'll decide whether it's for them or not.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's really valuable what you shared, right? Because most of the time in real estate, what agents are doing is you're right, they're competitors, right? It's absolutely like that. They're trying to do something where it can't be duplicated, where they're the only person in their market that can do it. And that's how you as a real estate agent stand out and capture market share, right? So I think that's where a lot of agents tend to struggle is they still have that mindset where they want to be unique, special, do something where they're the only person in the world that can do it, and then when they try to recruit other people, other agents are going to see them, and then they're going to they're going to see that they can't do or they can't replicate what this agent has done. So it's made it really frustrating for them. So I think you kind of answered this question already based on what you shared, right? Of working together, doing two-on-one calls or two-on-one meetings with other agents. But as a leader, right? If you're somebody who has maybe already has a team, or you start building a team of agents and you started recruiting some people, and you're finding that the agents that you've brought on aren't necessarily going out there and taking the actions that they're supposed to be taking, right, to go out and attract more agents to their team. How much effort you as a leader should be spending with them, and how much of that is their accountability on their own? Because obviously, this is a business model where you work together with the people that you brought on, your partners, but it's also not something where you want to go out there and manage and micromanage and basically do everything for them, right? So, in your experience, how much of that is your responsibility, and how much of that is the agents you brought on their own accountability to go out there and be successful?
You know, there's not one answer to that question. There's a couple. So let me give you a couple. One is I meet people where they are. And what I mean by that is if somebody says, hey, I'm only looking to make $5,000 a month as a number. And that's X amount of transactions, let's say, with EXP. I don't know your comp plan, but you got a high volume, obviously, a high ticket item. So let's say 5,000. Maybe is that one transaction? Is that fair? Is that a fair number?
It would depend on the market specifically as far as where this agent is at, right? In California, that could be half a transaction.
Right.
In Nebraska, that'd be, 10 transactions.
Right. Okay. Gotcha. Okay. So let's just pick a number as a metric. Let's say it's five grand. They say, hey, I want to make an extra 5,000 a month from this, and I'm willing to work 20 hours a week to do that. Great. If they make 5,000 a month, they're successful in their business and what they say that they wanted. Now, do they want more? Of course they do. Everybody does. But at the end of the day, I wouldn't spend a whole lot of time with that individual simply because they can probably do that one, two, three transactions, depending on where they are geographically, without a whole lot of hand holding, frankly. Okay. They got a license, they know what they're doing. You know what I mean? They can do that, fairly easy. Now, if they need my help, of course I'm there, on the telephone at least, or on a Zoom call. But if they say, hey, I want to make $50,000 a month, well, you're not going to do that 20 hours a week, not starting out, not until you build a team, obviously. You're going to need to put in a couple of years of tunnel vision focus to get to that kind of number, right? So that being the case, with that person, as long as they're doing the actions, or is it's not, I want to make 50,000 a month, but I'm at my kid's ball game, and then my favorite TV show's on, and then this and this, and you go, whoa, can we get to the point where we actually do some work, right? Like if they're like, hey, I'm on the phone, I'm recruiting, I'm building my team, I've got meetings, I'm showing homes, in other words, I'm doing all of the functions of the business. that's the person you lock arms with, because frankly, in the four organizations that I built and the one that I was corporate on, it's a handful of people that make it happen. Now you need a lot of bodies. You need a lot of people participating. You need a lot of those $5,000 people. Okay, they're your bread and butter. But at the end of the day, you spend about 20% of your time with that, what I call an 80 percenter, because that 80 percenter is basically somebody who 5 grand a month they're happy with, they love it, they love the company, they love you, they're great, but they don't need a lot. Now they may want a lot of attention, but you can't give them that kind of time, because you have to spend your time with the person who wants to go to that much higher level. And those two or three or four people who want to go to that level, work to that level, work with that level of responsibility that they want to get there. Those are the people you got to spend your time with, frankly, because time's not infinite. It comes and goes, right? So you got to spend your time with the people who want to make themselves serious money, that need the guidance. Now, the good thing is those people become leaders over the course of time. You're going to spend less time with them because they know what they're doing. Every organization I've built, okay, if I haven't been the number one earner, I've sponsored the number one earner. Okay. Well, the number one earner doesn't need you after a while. It's almost like you almost feel like your kids, like my kids have grown up now, and it's like, they don't need me anymore. That's a good thing. Go find another, you know. Um, but as they're developing to that level, they are going to need your guidance, your support. And sometimes it's a simple thing. Hey, they had a phone call they can't get to with somebody, with a prospect. Hey, would you do me a favor? I'm going to text Bill here and tell him I can't call him right now. I'm in a closing in your business. I'm making money right now. Man, I got caught up. Whatever happened, the people I'm closing with, they got a flat tire. All the things that happen in life, right? Can you fill in? Would you mind calling this prospect and walking him through the business, and whatever you guys send them, video or what, tutorials, whatever it is that you're sending that individual for them to see the business? Would you mind taking that first step for me? Things like that, where you can just kind of be another set of hands to assist them. I do that a lot for a lot of people. Right before we were on the call here, I got two new guys in Florida that are really good with AI, and they've got all kinds of plans. And with my business, well, I'm going to be available for those guys. Whatever they need me to do within reason, I'm going to do for them, because they're all so new. 6 months from now, yeah, we'll talk once a week. They'll be fine. They know what to do. In the beginning, though, is when I need to be kind of like guiding the process. I need to almost be like a mother hen. I'm here. Do you need me for a three-way? Do you need me for a Zoom call? If they're local, do you need me to go have a cup of coffee with somebody at Starbucks? Do you need, whatever it is that I can do to facilitate business, I'm willing to do to help that individual grow.
Yeah. Yeah, so that makes a lot of sense actually, because it's a hard balance to find, right? But I think you answered that perfectly, because I think a lot of times we're spending time with people who may or may not deserve our time, but everybody wants our time, right? As a leader, right? Somebody who has a team, everybody wants your time, but not everybody necessarily deserves your time. And there's also, like you mentioned, who's actually doing the actions, right? Because there's one thing about, it's one thing for somebody to say they want to do, build a $50,000 a month business, as another for somebody to actually go out there and attempt the actions to do it. So I think that makes a lot of sense, right? If somebody's out there who's actually, you see they're doing it, they deserve more of your time, you're a little bit more active with them. But if you see somebody who's kind of not necessarily in it, you're more passive, right? And you kind of wait for them to reach out to you. Does that sound about right?
That's about right. It's about right. And there's that old statement too: water seeks its own level. That $5,000 a month guy, he's going to figure out after about a month that he doesn't really need to talk to you to make 5,000. He may want to talk to you. He may want to complain. He may want, like all the stuff. But I always have another appointment. Okay. Now, some people are going to hear this and go, he told me he had another appointment. He had to get off the phone with me. There are people you got to get off the phone with. Okay. Because they're in complaint mode about whatever it is. Right. The company put out a brochure. They made it red and blue and white. They should have made it red and pink and white. And I got a problem. And they want to actually take your time to talk about, you're not the company. Hey, listen, I'll let my upline know. No problem. Move on, move past it, follow. You can't get caught up in the minutia with some of these people, because people will waste your time. And unfortunately, the smaller people are the ones that waste more of your time. A leader's too busy working. He's like, man, I'll figure it out. We'll talk later. We'll talk at 10 o'clock tonight. We'll talk at 7 o'clock tomorrow morning. They're busy doing, okay? So they don't have a whole lot of time to get caught up in the complaint session, so to speak. A lot of the smaller people, unfortunately, they do tend to want to talk more about, you know, I went to the meeting and I didn't like the speaker. I didn't, you know, that kind of thing. And it's like, okay, great, the meeting's over. There's nothing we can do about it. You know, you got to move them along. So what I've always done is I've always got that next call coming up at top of the hour, so I can get off the phone with them. And I'm not being rude. It's just you gotta really be very cognizant of your time in our business, because you got a lot of people to deal with. In your case, you got a growing organization. You got already got, you know, people across the country in different time zones that need different things. So you can't get on the phone for, you know, 2 hours about stuff that isn't going to move the business forward. Now, if they're on the phone, they're saying, hey, I got this prospect, this prospect, this prospect. Great. You stay on the phone all day. But if they don't have a prospect, you got to move on. Tom Hopkins, I don't know if his name means anything to you or not, but you know, Tom was a legend in selling, and he was a realtor in Phoenix for many years. And Tom used to have a thing. If somebody, you know, in the office started to like complain, he'd just say, hey, we pull out a contract. What are you doing? I'm selling real estate because that's what I get paid to do. So, what home do you want to buy? Well, what do you mean? I'm a realtor too. No, he was giving them a nice subtle message, like, stop wasting my time. I don't care who won the ball game last night. It's irrelevant. It's not going to put any money in my pocket, you know? And you got to have that level of intensity, honestly, to lead not only an organization in direct selling, but to lead yourself. You got to be able to cut some of the time wasters that happen. And that was really tough for me because I'm a really nice guy and I'll let them talk and talk and talk. But I got to the point where it was like, I just said, when call waiting came along, which wasn't in the early part of my career, when call waiting saved my life, I was like, wow, I have another call I got to take. And all of a sudden, it became my perfect excuse to move on to the next call. And by the way, 99 out of 100 times, whatever they were complaining about, by the next conversation, they forgot about it. So these are all the things they don't tell you in multi-level, but this is all the stuff you figure out in 42 years.
Yeah, I think, you know, it's important to understand that as well, because I think as a leader, especially in the beginning, you can convince yourself that you're taking, you know, 2 hour call when somebody's complaining to you. You know, you can't convince yourself that you're spending those 2 hours effectively just because you're quote unquote supporting a team member, right? Because nothing's happening, right? It's just somebody's just there kind of complaining to you about something or talking about something that they may or may not do or whatever, right? And instead, you should just move on to the next you know, income producing activity, right? Whatever that might be, talking to a prospect, talking to one of your own or somebody else on your team's prospect as well. So I think some of the other important another important question I would really like to kind of get your take on is just the income difference, right? And I'm not necessarily talking about the amount of income, but I'm talking necessarily about the way the income is earned, right? Because a lot of real estate agents, they'll see this, they don't necessarily get it, right? They're making good money in real estate, but for every transaction, right, they're getting paid per transaction. That's the nature of most sales, right? You're getting paid when you make a sale. When network marketing, that's completely different, where the actions that you're taking today is not necessarily going to pay you today, but it's going to accumulate into an income stream that's going to pay you residually over and over again every month, right? Depending on you know, the structure that your company pays out as well. So is that something that you see a lot of in sales as well? And that's basically, you know, why should people be thinking about building a team of salespeople rather than just them being the sole solopreneur, if you will, creating their own income using 100% of their time?
Well, you know, two answers for that. J. Paul Getty was the richest man in the world way back. And he always said, would I rather have, you know, 1% of 100 people's efforts or 100% of one? 100% of one, if they're a superstar, well, you do very, very well with them. But what if they get sick? What if they quit? What if they die? All these things happen in life. What if they just say, hey, I had enough, I'm going to retire? And you were totally dependent on that one individual. And there are real estate firms that have been that way over the years, right? Where the principal dies or gets sick. I have a friend in Baltimore. His dad's been with Prudential for years and years, top guy in that state. And ironically, his son's in network marketing. But what happens when that person checks out for whatever reason? Okay. But if I'm making 1% of 100 people, like Getty said, well, if somebody gets sick, somebody dies, somebody gets hurt, somebody quits, I got enough people to constantly be replacing them. And if I have people that are obviously recruiting, that 100 becomes 500, it becomes 1,000, it becomes 10,000, it becomes, some crazy numbers. Okay. So that being the case, it makes a lot more sense, frankly, to recruit. And that's something that you guys have figured out to do, is to bridge that gap between traditional real estate sales with network marketing in such a unique way. What you guys are doing, I think it's great, because you've got that in theory now done. Like I said, the guy at Prudential can join your business and recruit the guy at Better Homes and Gardens, who can recruit the guy at Century 21, that can recruit the guy at whatever. And before you know it, these people who used to be out there, cutting each other's throat, are now all of a sudden on the same team. So instead of competition, you have collaboration. That's a beautiful thing, and that's a good thing. And in business today, that's the way most things are morphing. You look at how many companies outside of real estate or outside of network marketing have collaborative businesses going on with each other. People who you think, wow, they're competitors. Then you find out, are they? They're collaborating on these 70 products over here. Maybe these 30 other products over here are their name brand products, but the other 70 they're collaborating on. Okay. And you find that more and more in business, because the survival of the business is dependent upon scale for the most part. And what you have in network marketing with real estate is scale. Now, where before you take a very tough business model and you just made it a little bit easier. Nothing's easy in this world, but easier because of what you guys are doing, the elements that you're bringing in from the network marketing, the best of network marketing with the best of real estate.
Yeah. Yeah, so I think that's something I always go back to as well. It's 100% of one versus 1% of 100. Right? And a lot of agents, they're 100% dependent on their own production. And like you said, some agents will say, I enjoy selling houses, I enjoy being an agent, but you don't necessarily get to choose whether or not you get to, go out there and sell houses sometimes, right? You could get sick, there could be emergencies that happen. Why not build an income stream where that could be covered if something were to happen later in life, right? Because that's not something that we like to talk about, but it's something that comes up and it's something that happens, and it's completely out of our control, whether or not, a health emergency or an accident happens. And I've seen, quite a few agents get derailed, even broker owners that we know get derailed because they're the person that has to manage the office and have to manage everything and take the liability just because of one health emergency that they had. Their entire business pretty much, more or less disappeared overnight.
Well, go one step further. And this is the insurance guy and me talking, and I'm the financial planning guy. But this becomes an annuity business. Like, I've got somewhere in this mess on my desk here. I don't have it handy. So, yeah, I do actually. Okay. This is, probably can't see that, but that's my Social Security statement. You don't get this yet. You're too young. But because of my age, 3 months before your next birthday, the government sends you one of these, which is your up to date Social Security. Now, I don't collect my Social Security. I don't need the money yet. The longer you defer it for, the larger amount that the government's going to pay you. But when I look at the numbers on that, if I had not prepared properly financially through network marketing, through my knowledge in the insurance business of putting away money into a SEP retirement account when I was very young, when I was your age is when I started. I was actually 25 when I started to save for retirement. Now I'm at that age. And my point about that is this is not going to be a full-time living for you in retirement. If you're at my age group, if you're over 55, let's say, this may or may not even exist. Okay. It's a nice extra money. You earned it. And I'm not talking about the politics of Social Security for a minute, but realistically, it's not enough to live on. in Houston, in Dallas, and any maybe in a rural area, you own everything. Maybe you live off the land. Yeah, you might get by, but realistically, you're not going to. So here's my point: a business like EXP, if you're in real estate, is perfect. Okay, to build a sales organization that becomes another annuity. It becomes another retirement plan. So if you're making, even if you're making just a few $1,000s per month to go along with this, with whatever else you have, maybe you were a school teacher at one time, maybe you were a plumber, maybe you were whatever, maybe you've got another pension coming in, maybe you were in the military. Okay, so whatever it is that you have, but why not add to it? Because, and I tell people this in my company all the time and in other network marketing companies when I do training for them, when that becomes an annuity, okay, you don't have to touch this money. This money can continue to grow on a yearly basis if you don't have to touch it. The longer you don't touch it for, the better off you're going to be. Same thing with your normal retirement money. The longer you let it defer for and build up interest, dividends, etc., depending on where you have it invested, okay, the greater it's going to be when you need it. Okay. Now, what if? Here's another one. What if in your older years you wind up disabled? A lot of people do. Or you wind up in a nursing home. Well, you might have long-term care insurance. That'll help. Most people don't. It's very, very expensive. And once again, if you wait till you're older to buy it, it's really expensive. So a lot of people, frankly, don't even bother. That being the case, why not once again build up this annuity through a business you already know of real estate, build a team, get that extra check, and let that check be either the disability money, the long-term care money if needed, or hopefully it's going to be the money where you can go off and play the best golf courses in the world with your spouse and have a great time. Well, we don't know in life what's going to happen. But by building an organization with something like EXP, with a business you already are familiar and know and are comfortable with, you don't have to go learn my business. You don't have to learn the supplement business. You don't have to learn the insurance business. You don't have to learn the automobile business. You already know real estate. Take full advantage of that fact and build that extra income. Okay. Especially if you are up there, 50 plus years old, start looking at that as another form of retirement savings in a business that you already know. Take full advantage of it. And you guys have set the right model. You guys have the right systems in place for them to do that. If, once again, it's their decision, but I would definitely promote that to a lot of realtors as, hey, this is another annuity for you, because when you're 70, you don't want to be out showing houses for a lot of reasons,
Right.
you know?
But John, man, thanks so much for being on the show today. And I just think you shared a ton of value with us. And I agree with most of the things that you said, probably everything that you said. And just wanted to say thank you for being on here today and sharing your knowledge and your value. Having been in network marketing for close to 5 decades now, you definitely know a thing or two. And I personally learned a lot from you as well. And I think a lot of our agent listeners have learned a lot from you in this audio, in this this session as well. So for anybody out there who is thinking about learning more about what you do, who maybe want to pick up one of your books, what are some of the best ways for people to kind of follow you in your journey, or to just get more information about who you are and what you do?
Uh, my books are all on Amazon, so that's easy. And they're downloadable, by the way, too. Like I said, I will have some more coming up on financial planning here shortly over the next couple of months. I'm just in the process of writing them now. And they're written for MLMers about things like life insurance, SEP retirement accounts, all the stuff I'm talking about. It's like, because it bugs me that so many people in my industry don't understand money. So that's one thing. Second thing, johnsolider.com is finally ready. I finally got my own website up to speed. I'm embarrassed I didn't before, but my daughter built that for me, so it's finally done. And our podcast, Leaving Nothing to Chance, or you can just go John_Solider. My last name's Solleder, and we've now had about 190 interviews, by the way, including most of the top people currently in network marketing, a lot of number one earners in companies, or guys like me, they're number one or they're number two or they're number five. Doesn't really matter their number in the company, because they came in at different times in their respective companies, but there's extremely knowledgeable people. In our YouTube, every Wednesday, I do an interview with an author. For example, We're just finishing up um, the first book that we did, 6 chapters of a 20 chapter book that we took on different people. And that particular book was on people like Og Mandino, Abe Lincoln, Walt Disney, Sylvester Stallone, etc. We're just finishing up. So every Wednesday is with an author that I'm interviewing about their particular book. The next one we're doing is called Awakening Who I Am. Great book, written by my friend Dan McCormick, one of the top earners over at New Skin. We're doing that right now. And then after that, you got my friend Brian Carruthers' book. By the way, Brian's dad was the realtor I was talking about in Maryland. It was very, very successful for many, many years. His sister's very successful. But Brian's in the network marketing space, called a book, Building an Empire. So these are books written by network marketers. I've got a few more kind of in the hopper. So every Wednesday is an interview with those guys. And then when each book is done, then I'm going to have a live call with the author. You got to be a living author. So good news, bad news. If somebody's passed away, I can't have Og Mandino or Jim Rohn on the show, unfortunately. But these guys are all living, breathing people. And they've all got great messages, once again, for network marketing, because that's what the books are kind of about. But there's also the personal journeys and the self-development that happens, which is another thing. We didn't even talk about that really, but the self-development that happens in a business like this. I mean, I never would have heard of people like Jim Rohn or Brian Tracy or Tom Hopkins or Zig Ziglar. I never would have heard their names if I hadn't gotten into network marketing. So you're on a great journey. And I'm so happy that at 23, you're already on the same journey. I started at 21. This is the greatest industry in the world. You're going to impact so many millions of people. You have no idea, my friend, what you're going to do. You're off to a great start, and I'm extremely proud of what you're doing and here to help however I can.
That's awesome. Thank you so much, John. I really appreciate that coming from you. And I will make sure to leave the links to your books in the description down below, and also your website and podcast as well. So we can go check that out. But other than that, man, do you have any last pieces of advice, any last tips you would like to leave with the audience before I let you sign off here today?
I probably one of the best pieces of advice I ever got. I was probably 15 or 16, and a guy in my neighborhood was an inventor. Believe it or not, he had a number of patents and nothing successful until he was in his 50s. But he kept inventing, and then he invented an automotive product that became very successful. And when his son told me he had become so successful, I walked down the street to talk to him. And his name was Frank Reich. I said, Mr. Reich, I said, congratulations. I said, how did you become so successful? He said, when everybody told me I was nuts and I should just take a job, as an engineer, or I should just take an engineering job. I said, no. He said, I was never afraid to fail. And I've met so many great entrepreneurs, mostly in network marketing, but some beyond that. I've met Mark Cuban. I've met some of the Shark Tank people. I've met other entrepreneurs here in Dallas. Of course, we have great entrepreneurs. You certainly do in Houston as well. And I think there's two commonalities that I find. One, they're not afraid to fail. They're not afraid to try things. Not everything works, believe me. But how are you going to know, right? So that's one thing. And the other thing is get up early. Now, that might sound funny to some people, but the entrepreneurial brain that we all have in network marketing or real estate, insurance, if you're an entrepreneur, which your listeners are, like most of mine are, there's something in your brain that about 90 minutes before sunrise starts to kick off of work. Go with it. Get up early. Get to the gym early, or get to your walk early, or get to your meditation early, or your yoga, or whatever it is that is your morning ritual. Start your day early. Okay, don't be one of these 11 o'clock at night. I go to bed. I wake. I get up the next morning at 10 o'clock because I'm self-employed. The really successful people get their rest and get up early and get about the day. Attack the day. Okay, and that sounds funny to say that, but I've interviewed, like I said, almost 190 leaders in different things, and every one of them gets up early. I worked for a billionaire for a short time. A guy who wanted to buy a network marketing company, is a billionaire, and he successfully bought a company. He was my client. And I would get texts from this guy 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning on a regular basis. And I was like, this guy doesn't need to work at all. Okay. Our current president, love him or hate him, when he was running his real estate empire in New York, I knew guys that worked from back east, where I'm from. 4 a.m., he was at his desk. So once again, success leaves clues. No matter who it is, they get up early and they get at the day before the day gets at them. And a lot of times it's the quiet time that you can plan your day strategically, what it is you need to accomplish that day. And you can lay it on paper and say, I got these calls, I got this to do, I got this Zoom, and I got a doctor's appointment in there. I got my son's baseball game in there. You schedule all of that stuff. But if you get up late, man, you are behind the day. So get up early.
That's some great advice, John. Thanks so much for being here. Thanks so much for sharing your value with us. And thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you in the next show. Take
Great.
care.
Enjoy it. Thank you.